Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy HP, and you're listening to episode 5 of the Unsportsmanlike Conduct podcast, where your typical armchair quarterback's going to talk about football, my beloved New York Giants, some baseball and basketball from time to time, and just any other current events impacting our sports world. Before I get into the agenda, everyone, please follow my Instagram page. That's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. Again, that's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. So please make sure you follow me on Instagram. Also, if you're listening to this episode, you're probably listening to it on YouTube or SoundCloud. You might as well subscribe, so please subscribe and drop your feedback and comments. They're always welcome and appreciated. The agenda for today, I'm going to give you my great reactions to Dave Gettleman and the New York Giants draft selections for this week's past NFL draft. You're going to want to hear what I have to say because you know what? I think Dave Gettleman did a pretty good job despite his first round blunder. I'm also going to give you guys some of my winners and losers for this year's NFL draft and then close this podcast by talking about the second round of the NBA playoffs. Let's get this episode started. So let's get into it, man. This past Thursday was the NFL draft, April 25th. The New York Giants picked 6th overall, 17th overall in the first round. That's what they originally were starting off on Thursday morning. A lot of Giants fans were anxious, nervous, and excited at the same time because this draft class was loaded with defensive players, especially defensive linemen, and even more so with great pass rushers. Not very often can you pick twice within the top 20 in the first round. People thought that this was going to be the draft, as I've stated before, that was going to turn this franchise around. But Dave Gettleman shocked all of us Giants fans. It was a blunder of a first round. And I want to talk about this because I want you guys to know my reactions as these picks were being made. I had a lot of time to really think about everything in totality. In totality, I think Dave Gettleman did a pretty decent job. He saved his ass. Because with the 6th overall pick, he drafts Daniel Jones, quarterback out of Duke. I couldn't believe how irresponsible and stupid that pick was. It was unbelievable. It was embarrassing. I had people reaching out to me. I had Giants fans reaching out to me, and then non-Giants fans reaching out to me, and then those people that aren't Giants fans were making fun of me and the New York Giants because we picked Daniel Jones, and then the Giants fans were asking for answers. They kind of looked to me for some sort of hope. Like, what do you think? What do you think about this pick? And unfortunately, I couldn't give them an answer they were looking for because I was just as distraught as they were. Sometimes general managers try to outsmart the whole league, and by doing so, they do a huge leap. They take a huge leap. I thought when the Raiders drafted Clelin Ferrell, I thought that was a pretty interesting pick because Clelin Ferrell would have been available later in the round. And just like the Giants, similar to the Giants, the Raiders had multiple first-round draft picks. But then to top off the Raiders, it was one of those, whatever you can do, I can do better. Dave Gettleman comes in, gets Daniel Jones, 6th overall. It was the most embarrassing thing I've ever went through. Some of these non-New York Giants fans are Redskins fans, are Eagles fans, are Cowboy fans. Not only do I have to answer through text messages, Facebook messages, Instagram DMs, it was embarrassing. And Dave Gettleman has possibly pushed back this franchise for about 5 to 10 years because of that pick. At number 6 overall, we literally had Josh Allen and Ed Oliver fall into our laps. And he screwed that pick up. Because apparently other teams were very high on Daniel Jones. Apparently, teams were more high on Daniel Jones than the draft analysts were. That's what I've been reading, because I'm trying to make sense of this goddamn pick. Made no sense at all. We would have had, if we had drafted Josh Allen, we would have had a premier prototype 3-4 defensive end who is excellent at pass rushing, exceptionally explosive, and has the capability to play outside linebacker, because in a 3-4 scheme, you want to have a guy that has that versatility, that can not only pin their ears back and get to the quarterback, but also drop back in coverage. That's how explosive this guy is. That's how explosive Josh Allen is. Gettleman came out saying he knew for a fact that there were 2 other teams that were interested in Daniel Jones. I find that really hard to believe. You want to know why? Because there was only one more quarterback that went after Daniel Jones. If teams were really that interested in quarterbacks, we would have had probably the top 5 quarterbacks come out of that first round. I was telling one of my coworkers before the draft started. I told him, hey, if the Arizona Cardinals don't draft Kyle Murray, we may not end up seeing a quarterback leave the first round, maybe with the exception of Dwayne Haskins. That's how well-rounded this draft class was with defensive players. That's how excellent this draft class was. And Dave Gettleman botched that pick. And what disturbs me the most, what annoys me the most, is he ends up coming out, and you want to know what the rationale for this pick was? And it goes against exactly what I said. Either it was in my last podcast episode or 2 podcast episodes. It goes against exactly what I said. He came out saying Daniel Jones will come in and sit on the bench and learn from Eli for 2 to 3 years. We'll have the system with the Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre situation. We'll do the same thing here. That tells me 2 things that Gettleman is pretty off on. He thinks that Eli Manning has 2 to 3 more years left. I completely disagree. I think Eli has 1 good year left, which will be this year. And I think the year after that should be his last season. So I'm a little afraid that he thinks Eli Manning has 2 to 3 more good years left in him. I'm very, very concerned about that. And then he also said, And then another take I get from that is that he thinks Daniel Jones can be just as good as Aaron Rodgers. Daniel Jones cannot be just as good as Aaron Rodgers. Okay? He doesn't have the arm strength to do so, and he doesn't have the deep throw accuracy to do so. Don't get me wrong, I don't think Daniel Jones has a noodle arm. Daniel Jones can throw deep when asked to do so, but he doesn't have the deep throw accuracy or nearly the same arm strength as Aaron Rodgers does. So those were the 2 takes I got from his rationale as to why he drafted Daniel Jones. Completely disagree with them. We would have gotten a premier pass rusher that would have been the cornerstone for that front 7 for years to come. We haven't been able to get to the quarterback. I've said this time and time again. We haven't been able to get to the quarterback probably since the last time we won the Super Bowl. Yes, we weren't able to protect Eli Manning, so we fixed the offensive line, but during that same time, we weren't able to get to the opposing team's quarterback. And so when I saw that pick, I froze, and honestly, it gutted me out, man. It gutted me out. And the first round, these picks take so long. So I'm like, okay, now I got to wait, another 11 picks to get to the 17th round? And mind you, earlier that day, I was just coming under a fever. So right now I don't feel that well, and I'm watching the draft go on. And Daniel Jones, after all this anticipation, after the eagerness of starting this podcast and dropping it every Monday, this is what happens. It almost took the motivation out of me to say, you know what, I can't go on this mic. I can't record a podcast. I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk about this. It was embarrassing, irresponsible, and it just made no sense to me. Because there are other quarterbacks graded higher than him. I don't care what these reporters say, what these insiders say. I don't think Daniel Jones would have. I don't think Daniel Jones would have went in the first round. I think the Giants were solely more high on Daniel Jones than any other team. It could have been smoke and mirrors. And apparently I read that the New York Giants were afraid that Daniel Jones wasn't even going to make it to 6th overall. That's even more concerning. And I apologize. I apologize to so many people for this pick. Because I came out saying Gettleman knows what he's doing, trust in Gettleman. And I've used the past transactions and draft picks to explain why, to rationalize why I thought Dave Gettleman was going to execute all of these draft picks. It was so imperative to pick a pass rusher. Josh Allen was right there, and I understand why every New York Giants fan out there thinks that that was a horrible pick. It was either in my last episode or 2 episodes ago I said this. I said, you do not want to pick a quarterback 6th overall and then find out 2 or 3 years later that that quarterback isn't going to work out. That's what concerns me. If Daniel Jones doesn't see the light of day, if he doesn't see the football field during the regular season, and we find out in 2 years that our 6th overall pick didn't work out, you know how back that's going to set us? Look, folks, you need an overall good team to win a championship. But most importantly, you need a quarterback. You absolutely need a quarterback. Every team that's won a Super Bowl in almost the last 10 years has had a good, competent quarterback. Everyone doesn't need to be the Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Drew Brees, Russell Wilson. I'm not saying you need to be a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but you need to be a good quarterback. You don't have to be great. You don't always have to make it to the Pro Bowls, but you have to be a good quarterback. You have to know how to make plays. Imagine this one doesn't work out. What are we going to do in 2 to 3 years? What if our record isn't bad enough where we can draft a good quarterback, and then we have to give a future draft capital just so we can move up in the draft? It just stresses me out, and I don't look forward to it. And it was after that pick that I came to a realization that one of my friends, shout out to Anthony, one of my friends, he said, after the OBJ trade, the New York Giants are the Cleveland Browns of the NFL. And I disagreed with them. But it wasn't until after that draft pick I started having a little panic attack because I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my gosh, we very well could be the Cleveland Browns of the NFL, the new Cleveland Browns. And it scared me because, guys, I can't live like that. The New York Giants are so important to me. They are my life. I think I bleed blue. I don't think I bleed red. Okay, I don't think my blood's red. I think my blood is blue. I bleed big blue. I wear the Giants on my, that patch is on my shoulder. I just love this team so, so dearly. If I ever have a kid, I may end up naming one of my kids Eli. Or you know what, I may end up giving him the whole, Eli's whole first and last name. That's how much I love this team. I can't live like that. I can't live with the Giants being so mediocre. And I get it that, the last, several years, the Giants haven't been that great of a team, but the Giants have been competitive every year. Every year was sort of the same case where we've been close, a couple of points from winning several games, which have been the deciding factor as to why we weren't able to make a playoff push towards the end of the season. But that pick was a head scratcher. And Gettleman's so high on Daniel Jones, it was just very, very confusing. And then to make things worse, Josh Rosen gets traded to the Miami Dolphins for a 2nd-round pick. How couldn't we have done that? Josh Rosen is better than Daniel Jones. Guys, don't look at Josh Rosen's stats. Don't focus on that win-loss record. Josh Rosen knows how to slice up a defense. He is a smart quarterback, and he can make every single NFL throw. That's the guy you want under center. You give him the right team, you give him the right process, he's going to help you win a lot of ball games, and I think he's ready to do that immediately. Okay? The Cardinals thought, we'll bring in Kyle Murray and that's going to solve our problems. Well, you still need to fix your offensive line. You still need to fix your defensive line. Okay, it just doesn't, you can't just bring in a new quarterback and expect to get different results. Don't blame Josh Rosen for last year's, slow rookie year. It wasn't his fault. He was just put in a bad team. That team was a dumpster fire. I hope Gettleman's right on this. Because 2-3 years down the road, I do not want to see that being a mistake. Because let's be honest, guys, 2 to 3 years, Eli is done. Eli's gone after 2 to 3 years. And this will be the first time for me as a Giants fan to see what life after Eli is going to look like. So it's also going to be a very, very important part of my life as a Giants fan to see what this team's going to look like without Eli Manning. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. It was embarrassing, and that's really just all I have to say. I mean, Gettleman, he may have set this franchise back 5 to 10 years. I couldn't believe it. He wasn't even one of the top graded quarterbacks. Drew Lock was graded higher, and that's why the Denver Broncos traded back. Actually, let me just go back to my point about how the first round was so defensive oriented. Because there were so many studs, so many day one starters in this draft from a defensive standpoint. That's why there were way more defensive players, especially defensive linemen, that went in this draft than offensive players did. And that's why the Denver Broncos said, you know what? Quarterbacks aren't going to go in the first round. I don't think Drew Lock will leave the first round. We're just going to go and trade back. And that's why they ended up drafting him later in the second round. Because what was the point? Not only by trading back, they got more draft capital. That was a smart move by the Denver Broncos. Kudos to them for doing that. I thought that was a very smart move by John Elway. And it's little moments like that where I'm like, man, if the Dolphins can trade a second-round pick for Josh Rosen, if the Broncos are smart enough to trade trade back to get their quarterback, then why can't my general manager from my favorite team do strategic moves like that, methodical moves like that? Where they can still get the player they want. But time will only tell. Time will only tell. And then to make things better, at the 17th overall pick, Montez Sweat is available, 17th overall. I'm licking my chops. I'm like, man, this is it. This is where we get the pass rusher. This is where Gettleman can save the first round. And all the analysts are talking about it. Trey Wingo, Mel Kiper, Louis Riddick, who is probably one of the best NFL analysts I've ever watched on television. I can watch Louis Riddick. I'm all eyes and ears when Louis Riddick is talking on TV. He is someone that just has so much knowledge. Every time Louis Riddick speaks, I come away with learning something. And so I recommend everyone who wants to just get a little bit better with their football knowledge, I recommend everyone just listen to Louis Riddick on ESPN when his segments come up regarding football. Be eyes and ears when he's on TV, because he provides some great information, great insights, and it's always just a pleasure just listening to him. But yeah, all the analysts, all the panelists for the draft are saying, hey, this is where the New York Giants should probably get a pass rusher. Montez Sweat is available. The reason why Montez Sweat dropped, he is a top 10 talent, but the reason why he dropped were for two reasons. A heart condition, which I ended up reading was misdiagnosed, and he also had character issues. But you can fix character issues. You put him in the right organization, put him in some right structure. You can fix character issues. People have to, GMs and coaches have to remember, these players are not only athletes, but they're kids. Some of these athletes are teenagers. Some of these athletes aren't even legally allowed to drink yet. Some of these athletes are 20, barely 21. So of course there's going to be immaturity issues. Of course there's going to be quote unquote, I guess, character issues if you may. But that's where you should come in and help that player. Never ever give up on good talent. And that's what 16 teams did, including the New York Giants twice in the first round. Because at number 17, inexplicably, we ended up getting a big body nose tackle, Dexter Lawrence out of Clemson. This pick pissed me off too. We needed a pass rusher. You passed on Josh Allen. At number 17, we could have gotten Montez Sweat, who is equally as versatile as Josh Allen. Can rush the passer and is athletic enough to play some outside linebacker as well. And we passed up on Montez Sweat for an oversized 340-pounder defensive tackle and interior lineman, which we did not need. We have a good defensive. We have a pretty decent players on the defensive line, but we don't have pass rushers. We have B.J. Hill. We have Dalvin Tomlinson. We needed an edge rusher. I wanted a day one immediate edge rusher. Someone who can start day one, and he gets Dexter Lawrence, which made no sense to me. And then immediately after that, all the panelists on ESPN were questioning why they went for Dexter Lawrence. And there were some fans out there. I was reading on the blogs. I was reading on Instagram. Don't worry, Dexter Lawrence is a pass rusher. Dexter Lawrence is not a pass rusher. You cannot be 340 pounds and know how to rush the passer. Look, I'm no expert. I'm no NFL scout, but I know well enough about football to understand that a 340-pound defensive tackle is not a pass rusher. And you know what? Numbers don't lie. He only had 1.5 sacks last year. Prove to me how that makes sense, how that makes him a pass rusher. Unbelievable. Some of these people are just unbelievable on social media and on all these blogs. People responded to my comments within other comment threads on other pages where I'm complaining about this pick, saying, "Don't worry, we're gonna be just fine. Dexter Lawrence is a pass rusher." What tape are you watching? Did you just not see the tape? Did you not just see the highlights? Did you not just see all the NFL panelists, scratch their heads about that pick? So for 2 straight picks in a row, Dave Gettleman fails to address an immediate need, which was pass rusher. I was livid at this point. And at this point, my fever was getting worse. And I was exhausted. I was physically and mentally exhausted after these picks. And I only stayed up for about maybe up until the Falcons pick, which should have been maybe 20 or 21. I don't quite remember. But after the Falcons draft pick, I went to bed. I told everyone because my phone was blowing up after both of these picks. Giants fans wanted answers. Non-Giants fans, were berating me as if I made those picks. But I'm responsible. I'll take it. I'm responsible, and I deserve all of those jokes and all those insults because I always think that this New York Giants team is going to turn it around, and I've been a big Dave Gettleman supporter. One of my buddies asked me after listening to one of my podcast episodes, he said, "How much is Gettleman paying you to endorse him so much?" Right? Like, that's how crazy I look in front of a lot of people because of my endorsement, because of how much of in favor I am of some of the moves that Dave Gettleman made in the past for the New York Giants. So I went to sleep. I called him tonight. I'm like, screw this. My offseason is ruined. I was looking forward to leaving the first round with those 2 picks with some studs. And all you could have done, Daniel Jones would have definitely made it to pick 17. All you could have done was get Josh Allen at number 6, Daniel Jones at 17. And do I think at 17 Daniel Jones is still too high? Yes. But if you're really in love with the player and you're really that scared that he's not going to last the first round, then I will compromise my draft beliefs to your draft beliefs. I would have allowed you to get Daniel Jones at 17. And then to make things worse, our division rival gets one of my favorite players in the draft, Montez Sweat. Immediately after the Redskins go and get Montez Sweat. So not only do they get the better quarterback in Dwayne Haskins, which, a buddy of mine who's a Redskins fan, shout out to Matt, and some of these other NFL analysts, they don't think Dwayne Haskins is that much better than Daniel Jones. But still, nevertheless, is a better quarterback and has better stats to show for it. At least his stats show that, he's capable of putting up numbers. So Montez Sweat goes to the Washington Redskins, and I'm like, shit, god damn it. If that guy sacks Eli Manning next year, I'm going to lose it. That's going to hurt my soul. That will hurt my feelings. That's going to break my heart. The guy that I so badly wanted since I started this podcast will be sacking my quarterback. Not only will he be sacking Eli Manning for the next year or two, but then when Eli's done and Daniel Jones takes over the keys to this offense, he'll be terrorizing Daniel Jones for his entire New York Giants career. So good job, Gettleman. Good job. Jeez, give me a break. But thankfully, Gettleman stepped his game up and decided to act like a legitimate general manager, the general manager that I'm known to know. The general manager that I've been endorsing and sponsoring on this podcast since episode 1. He trades a second-round pick and a fifth-round pick to draft at 30th overall in the first round. And you know what he does? He improves the secondary immediately by drafting a stud cornerback, DeAndre Baker, out of Georgia. DeAndre Baker is 5'11". He's a little undersized, but he's not completely undersized. There are a ton of cornerbacks that are his size. DeAndre Baker is very feisty, very, very physical, great tackler also. I know a lot of people think, cornerbacks are paid to cover and not to tackle. You're wrong. They get paid to tackle as well. Okay? People like Greedy Williams a lot. Greedy Williams is the flashy pick. DeAndre Baker is your prototype cornerback. Is very, very physical. He had a bad 40 time, which is why he dropped so deep into the first round. But from a talent level, he can cover really well, tackle really well, and he's going to disrupt a lot of receivers at that line of scrimmage. It is going to be fun watching DeAndre Baker out there. I'm a huge cornerback is my favorite position, and one of my favorite things about a cornerback is when he can get physical immediately right after the snap is called. I love when receivers throw their arms up looking to the ref for a penalty. That's what's going to happen against DeAndre Baker. DeAndre Baker is a dog. He's going to be there fighting with heart and soul every single snap. This immediately improves our secondary. Dave Gettleman knew what our weaknesses were. It was the defense. It was pass rushing and our secondary. Our secondary was depleted. 30-year-old Janoris Jenkins on the decline, and then the only good player that we have in our secondary was Jabril Peppers. We needed to get more younger. Antoine Bethea as the safety was not going to help us. We had no other cornerbacks besides Janoris Jenkins, so Dave Gettleman gets DeAndre Baker, the best cornerback out of this draft class. He reminds me a lot of Tre'Davious White, the cornerback from the Buffalo Bills, who is a top 5 cornerback in this league. DeAndre Baker knows how to use his hands, knows how to get physical, but with the right way. He's fundamentally sound. Hasn't given up a touchdown since 2017. Could you believe that? That is impressive. That is a true definition of a shutdown corner. You want to ask me, is DeAndre Baker good? What do you think about that pick? That was a great pick. Because of that pick, Gettleman saved the first round blunder. Because of that pick in the first round, we went from a C+ first round grade to a B-. That is how much of an impact an improvement DeAndre Baker gives to our team. And don't get me wrong, I think we found 2 day 1 starters in the first round. Dexter Lawrence is a good player, but he's not the right player. It's not the player we needed, but I certainly think he's going to start day 1. And DeAndre Baker will definitely start day 1. So we have 2 people out of the 3 picks that will be starting day 1, but only one of them addresses a need for this New York Giants team, which is DeAndre Baker. So Gettleman, good job. Because now I have some confidence on Friday thinking, okay, I can't wait to see what we're going to do in the second and third round. Well, we traded our second round, so we didn't have a second round pick. But it gave me motivation, it gave me some confidence, it calmed me down. Because now I'm like, okay, maybe he does know what he's doing. Let's wait and see what he does for the next couple of picks. And then in the third round, we get an edge rusher, O'Shane Jimenez, out of Old Dominion University. I was watching highlights of him. This guy looks good. Defensive end, is a pure pass rusher. Knows how to spin his ears back and just gets to the quarterback. Is very, very good with his hands. I talked about this a couple of times, several episodes ago. The way defensive ends are effective at rushing the passer is because they're so good with using their hands to create space and get open into the backfield and get to the quarterback. And he knows how to do it. And he has a good quick step, a good quick first step off the line of scrimmage. And that's how he's able to win early in the snap to get to the quarterback. People are comparing him to OCU Minora. That is a great comparison. If you're telling me this guy's going to be the next OCU Minora, I'll take it, man. It was a good pick. Very strategic pick. And I honestly think he may even start day one, too. He'll have competition with B.J. Hill. B.J. Hill had a pretty decent year. Had 5-6 sacks last year. But B.J. Hill isn't a pure pass rusher the way O'Shane Jimenez is. They call him the X-Man. I can't wait to start yelling X-Man on the TV every time he makes a big play. My only knock on him is this. He played for Old Dominion University. I didn't know that college existed until he got drafted. What the hell is that? Where the hell is that? Okay, I don't know what that is. I don't know what type of school that is. I've never heard it before. I wouldn't be surprised if he's the only player that's been drafted out of that university, out of that program. So with that being said, he hasn't played against great competition. He's played against very low-tier competition. So, it's really hard to tell how good he's going to be. Another knock on him is that he's not that great in the run defense. But you know what? We're a 3-4 defense, and that's what we're going to have our outside linebackers for. Everyone isn't going to be perfect in all aspects of the game. But Gettleman addresses a weakness, which is pass rusher. And despite the lack of competition that he faced, from an eye test standpoint, he just looks like he knows how to rush the passer. Very, very aggressive. Just gets to it. You know what I mean? Isn't too hesitant. Doesn't dance around. I don't like when defensive ends come off the snap, start dancing around a little bit, and then engage with the offensive lineman. I like when guys get up off the snap and then just completely attack right into their necks, right through their shoulders. That's what O'Shane Jimenez knows how to do. That's what the X-Man knows how to do. He just gets up and attacks, uses his arms, and is very, very effective in doing so. And it's also a good sign that even because of the fact that he played bad competition, it's a good sign that he excelled when doing so. And apparently he was supposed to be a second-round pick. But he fell to the third round for the same reasons that I'm saying that for my concerns is that he didn't play for a top program. So that's okay. I mean, Randy Moss didn't play for a top program. And, I don't even think OCU Minor did play for a top program. I'm actually going to look that up now. I want to confirm. I don't want to say anything incorrect. Just a couple of seconds, guys. I want to see where OCU Minor played. Let's see. Yeah, Troy University. I mean, Troy University isn't a big college, football program either. So you can get talent anywhere. You know what I mean? I think you can get talent anywhere despite the competition that they face. So that was a good pick by Gettleman, and then because of that pick, I took a step back, and the selection of Dexter Lawrence at 17th overall kind of made sense. He had some beef to the defensive line, get some depth in the offensive line, and now think about it. Right now we have an edge rusher with O'Shane, and then we have a run stuffer in Dexter Lawrence, and we already had B.J. Hill and Dalvin Tomlinson. So now our front seven's looking pretty good. Because we were set with linebacker, Alec Ogletree, B.J. Goodson, Lorenzo Carter, Kareem Martin. We were set with linebacker. And I think we're a little more set now with our defensive line. Again, the X-Man and Dexter Lawrence have to work out. And also, even though, I'm feeling a little bit more better about the Dexter Lawrence pick, I just want to reiterate that still wasn't the right pick. We missed out on Josh Allen in the first round. I still believe we should have gotten him. Because look how good our draft would have looked like if we would have gotten Josh Allen, then Daniel Jones at 17, and then imagine DeAndre Baker. We would have had a cornerstone pass rusher and a cornerstone defensive back to lead our defense for the next 5 to 10 years. So we missed out on that. But you know what? I like the X-Man pick. It was a good pick. And because of the lack of competition that he's had, I really, really hope that they give him a lot of snaps in preseason. That's a guy that has to see a lot of playing time during the preseason. We need to get a good gauge of how good he's going to be. I want him in practice to face Nate Soldier, our best tackle on the team. Give him starter snaps in the preseason. I need to see how he's going to do against good talent. So at least I can make a conclusion because I want to be able to have some sort of confidence in this pick. Because if he doesn't work out, then we're back at square one and we don't have a pass rusher again. And then after that, in the 4th round, Gettleman improves this secondary again. Great selection. Just put smile all over my face. He gets Julian Love, cornerback from Notre Dame. Now the thing with Julian Love is he was supposed to be a 2nd rounder. People consider that to be the steal of the draft because he was supposed to be a 2nd rounder. He has great on-ball coverage. He's good at man coverage, and he's good at the zone, too. He's a pretty versatile cornerback. He's not that great of a tackler as DeAndre Baker is, but some of the highlights that they were showing, he made some pretty good tackles. He's more of a finesse cornerback, so I think that's the perfect balance. Right, because now on one side you have someone that's going to fight and disturb people off the line, right off the line of scrimmage with DeAndre Baker, and then on the other side you'll have someone who's a little more finesse with Julian Love. I loved the pick, no pun intended, and now our secondary is looking really, really good. Because I think these are the draft picks. I think Julian Love starts day 1 too, and that's important, right? At the 4th round, look, I've always said this. Rounds 1 through 4 is where you can find the best level of talent. A buddy of mine made an argument that where you get the most value is between rounds 4 and 7. And I agree with that concept because those players are much more cheaper from a contract perspective. Whereas rounds 1, 2, and 3, you can find a lot of busts, or it's more easier to pick out the talent there. But it's more easier to find talent between rounds 1 through 4. That's my personal opinion. So when you can draft guys in the 3rd, 4th round that can come in and start day 1, the way Gettleman did last year with B.J. Hill and Lorenzo Carter, even though Lorenzo Carter didn't start every game, he played every game. That's a win-win. That's a plus. So take a look at how our secondary is going to look. It's a very youthful secondary that's going to be very, very feisty. I think there are going to be a lot of playmakers. We're going to create a lot of turnovers in that secondary. We have Jabril Peppers, safety, DeAndre Baker, and Julian Love. And then we have a veteran, Janoris Jenkins and Antoine Bethea, to teach these young studs how to ball. Because they're already good players. Now you got 2 veterans, and Janoris Jenkins has probably another year or 2 left in him of good production. But now we have, these 2 veterans who can teach these young players the right way to play this game, the right way to play the NFL game. I can't wait to see how this is going to look. And because of that draft pick, I took a step back and I'm like, man, Gettleman is the man. This is how you do this. This is how you improve this team. You address weaknesses. You find players that you can immediately plug in. Very, very excited about that. And you know what? I don't think that... Look, the Giants may not make it to the playoffs next year, but I think we're going to be competitive as hell. I think, we may be a 7-9, 8-8 team. And it may come down to another one of those seasons where, we lose a couple of games that are very, very tight because we couldn't score a couple of points or maybe we couldn't get that one last stop. But this defense will create turnovers, and I can't wait to see it because it has been a long time. I don't even remember the last time where everyone in our secondary was capable of playing really good ball. When you can draft a cornerback like Julian Love and DeAndre Baker, the possibilities are endless. I can't wait to see how James Betcher is going to use these guys. It's going to be exciting. Our team is looking good. That defense is looking pretty good. I still think pass rusher needs to be addressed. I don't know if O'Shane Jimenez will address it. But if he turns out to be a good pick and he turns out to be productive, then we have a solid defense. Gettleman achieved that with this draft. And, I had given Dave Gettleman a B- after the first round. But then up until round 4, after the Julian Love pick, I was so satisfied. I didn't care what we did at 5, 6, or 7. I was so happy. I'm like, yep, this is it. Successful draft. I'm a happy camper now. I can enjoy the rest of my weekend. And so I would give this whole draft class a B, a grade B. And the reason why B and not B+, I'm a little hesitant to give it a B+ or anything higher than a B is because I don't know if we address pass rusher. O'Shane Jimenez looks good, but I don't know if we really address pass rusher. So that's still a concern for me. But we filled up that secondary, and I was so happy about that. And then, we didn't get a right tackle until the 7th round. So that concerned me too. We should have tried to find a right tackle earlier in the rounds. But, Gettleman kind of handcuffed himself by trading away the 2nd and 5th round picks. So I kind of get why, you kind of have to, at that point, figure out who the best players available are. Also, even though I do like the Julian Love pick, I wish we would have gotten Deontay Thompson, the safety out of Alabama. Because he's a really, really good safety. The reason why he dropped is because I believe he had a wrist injury. And so I think he missed his workouts in Combine. I believe that's the reason why. So I think that's, because of that, teams weren't really able to currently evaluate and assess him. But I wish we would have gotten Deontay Thompson because he was available when the Giants drafted Julian Love. So I give the Giants a grade B for this year's draft class. It left me motivated, left me confident, and good job by Dave Gettleman again to be able to just go deeper in the rounds and find some really good players. And these players are considered steals because these players were projected to go early in opposed to when they were actually drafted. Jimenez was supposed to go in round 2. Julian Love was supposed to go in round 2. The reason why DeAndre Baker dropped is because he had a 5:52 40 time. But I don't think you need to be. I think you need to be a average speed cornerback. I don't think you have to be that fast because the game's so quick in terms of each play only lasts about 3 seconds. So if DeAndre Baker can cause frustration early in the snap for a receiver to not be able to progress through his routes, through his route tree, then you don't really need to be that fast. He's a legitimate man coverage cornerback, and he's going to be pretty successful. And I can't wait to see him play. The secondary is looking youthful, it is looking good, and I can't wait to see these boys put on that New York Giants jersey. It's going to be fun to watch. The New York Giants may need to create their own turnover chains, the way the Miami Hurricanes did. So really, really excited to see how this New York Giants team is going to turn out to be. And although we didn't draft a right tackle when we should, I do want to let all Giants fans know that we may end up signing Mike Remmers, who was previously a right tackle for the Minnesota Vikings. He had some injury issues, which is why he wasn't as highly coveted during this free agency period. But I think we can get him for a cheap contract, and I think he'll be more than serviceable for our New York Giants and should complete our offensive line. I don't want to jump the gun and say we'll be a playoff team, but don't be surprised if we do. I think it's going to be tough though because the Philadelphia Eagles are better than the New York Giants right now. The Dallas Cowboys are better than the New York Giants. They're probably the best team in the NFC East at this moment. And the Redskins just have a proven better defense than we do right now. So I don't think I'm just a little too hesitant to to pull the trigger and say, "Yep, we're gonna make it to the playoffs," because there's so much competition in our division. Our division has always been the most toughest division to play in. We don't have the luxury like the New England Patriots. The Jets, Bills, and Dolphins have been crappy teams ever since I've probably been a football fan. They had a couple of competitive years with Rex Ryan on that team, but other than that, although the rest of those three teams have been trash. New England's had it pretty easy with their division. The New York Giants and the rest of those NFC East teams haven't really had that luxury. So, more to come on that. Obviously it's a wait-and-see situation. But Gettleman, I applaud you. Kudos for saving your ass. Kudos because you know what? I'm still a fan. And I think you did a good job in this draft. I still despise you for drafting Daniel Jones. And you better hope it works out. Because honestly, that you're on the clock if it doesn't. That's your clock. You're on the Daniel Jones mistake. I'm going to get fired clock. If he doesn't work out, you're out of town, bud. It's over for you. That's so great about the NFL draft is that you always think the player that you want, the player that you have in your own personal mock draft, should be the player that the general manager for your team should draft. And when it doesn't happen, when you don't get what you want, it's an emotional roller coaster. Questions get raised. You get confused. You get nervous and anxious for the upcoming football season. You immediately go to every news outlet that covers your team, in detail to see, if the pick was right. And so that's the beauty about the NFL draft, and that's the beauty about the NFL offseason that's different and better than every single offseason and draft in sports. It's better than the NBA offseason. Because in the NBA offseason, there's always either one or two stories. Where's Kevin Durant going to go? Where's LeBron going to go? Will such and such player join LeBron? Will such and such player join Kevin Durant? And then the NBA draft is never deep with talent. I honestly turn off the TV after the first, 10 picks. And the thing about the NBA draft is if you don't have a top 5 pick, then the rest of the draft is boring. You may as well tank until the next year. That's the reason why NBA teams, it's very, very hard in the NBA to get better. You can't organically grow your team sufficiently the way you can in the NFL. And even in baseball. We've seen it happen in baseball as well with the Cubs and the Houston Astros. And you can even say with the Mets, with their pitching staff, right? How they were able to get those pitchers like, Matt Harvey and Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard. Right? Like that happens through organic player development and the farm system, whereas the NBA is very, very different. If you can't draft good players year in and year out, organically, then your team's going to suck forever. And it's hard to draft good players in the NBA because these kids are coming out of college and they're not even ready. The thing with football and basketball the thing with football and baseball, in those collegiate sports, there are so many conferences that people compare the competition to NFL-like competition, to MLB-like competition. From a talent perspective, there are players that are immediately NFL and MLB ready. Maybe a little less so with baseball, because with baseball, players directly have to go to the minor league and develop themselves. But we've seen over the last, several years, players are getting called up way, way more quickly, way more recently. And they're having a success. They're having great success. The thing with baseball that I love so much, actually, and I don't mean to digress here a bit, but with the NBA, we always have the same type of players dominate for so long, for generations, for decades. Whereas with the MLB and the NFL, you always see a new wave of superstars probably every 5 years. Which is not much you can say for the NBA. And in the NBA, that's probably the one sport where good player talents get wasted. Everyone's so happy about Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard's never winning a championship with the Portland Trailblazers. John Wall's never going to win with the Washington Wizards. Russell Westbrook is clearly not going to win with the Oklahoma Thunder. But with the NFL, like Patrick Mahomes, second year, that Kansas City Chiefs team was poised to go to the Super Bowl, but just ran into New England. It's very, very different. That's why I love the NFL offseason, especially the NFL draft. Because teams quickly turn it around in the NFL draft. Which is not much you can say for the NBA draft. But there were some weird choices, weird draft selections in this year's draft. I thought the Oakland Raiders didn't really do that great of a job. I think there were some reaches, and I don't think they necessarily addressed all of their needs. So they draft Clayton Farrell out of Clemson, right? But he would have definitely dropped later in the first round. At your lap, you had, again, similarly to the Giants, you had Josh Allen and you had Ed Oliver. Good, pure pass rushers, versatile defensive tackles. Right? So Ed Oliver played as an interior lineman, but that was just a misplacement. Ed Oliver can play defensive end. The Raiders couldn't get to the quarterback all year after, once they traded Khalil Mack, all year they couldn't get to the quarterback. It showed, and that's where you could have gotten a clear-cut decision in Josh Allen and Ed Oliver. So that was a head-scratcher. And then with their second pick in the first round, they get running back Josh Jacobs. I have a rule about running backs going very early in the draft. Unless they're clear-cut, poised to be stars, guys like Gurley, guys like Zeke, Saquon, Christian McCaffrey, you shouldn't take a running back in the first round. You shouldn't take a running back in the first round. You can wait. Running backs are one of those types of positions that you can find in the later rounds. Case in point, the running back from Oklahoma State University, Justice Hill, he went in the fourth round, I believe, to the Raiders. He's a pretty good running back. So you can wait for that type of talent. Wayne Gallman. I know Wayne Gallman hasn't really got his fair share of snaps. He's only been in the league for 2 years, or maybe 3 years, rather. We drafted Saquon, so obviously, Wayne Gallman's a second-string running back. But Wayne Gallman was a late-round pick, and he's a pretty decent running back. He's a serviceable running back. So I thought that was really odd by the Raiders as well. I thought that could have been maybe a reactionary pick because Marshawn Lynch wasn't coming back. And I think they were going to rely on Marshawn Lynch to still be the running back heading into this year's NFL season. So that was also questionable. The only pick I really, really liked in that first round by the Raiders was Jonathan Abrams, the safety. It was a really, really good pick, and they made a comparison. I was reading some articles on him, and they made a comparison to Landon Collins. And Landon Collins is a stud safety, so that was definitely a good pick. And they also got LaMarcus Joyner, so I thought that was a very, very good combination of two safeties to have there. Jonathan Abrams will definitely start on day one and be an immediate impact player for them. So that was good. But then round two, they drafted cornerback Trayvon Mullen. In my mock draft that I did 2 episodes ago, I had the New York Giants getting Trayvon Mullen in the third round. And think about it, look, the Oakland Raiders picked fourth overall. So at fourth overall in the second round, they get Trayvon Mullen. I thought that was too high. That was a bad pick. They could have gotten Greedy Williams, who was arguably one of the best cornerbacks in this draft class, alongside DeAndre Baker. So why wouldn't you get Greedy Williams? Greedy Williams is your prototypical, 6 feet cornerback, very, very fast, very, very good makeup speed, and is a ball hawk. So I thought that was very questionable as well. And then, I looked at all the players that they drafted. At some point between rounds 1 through 4, they should have gotten a wide receiver. I know they just got Antonio Brown. I know they just got Tyrell Williams. But Antonio Brown is 30 years old. How much longer do you really think Antonio Brown has? Right? You have to find people that you can plug in once you see older veteran players start to regress. So I thought they should have dressed a wide receiver at some point in the mid to late rounds. So that was questionable. And then most importantly, they didn't draft an offensive line. That was one of their big weaknesses. Offensive line. Derek Carr got sacked, I believe, about 50 times last year. The most out of any quarterback in the NFL. How do you expect Derek Carr to sit back there and throw to Antonio Brown? Antonio Brown is a route runner. Antonio Brown can run good and complicated route trees, and it's hard to defend him. But how is he supposed to go through his route tree if Derek Carr doesn't have enough time to get him the ball? That's not a recipe for winning games. So I thought that was a big mistake by John Gruden and Mike Mayock. Whoever made the decision to not draft an offensive line, I think they will definitely regret that. Two teams that I was in love with their draft picks, in love with their strategies, were the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. The Jacksonville Jaguars drafted Josh Allen. The thing I like about when teams do this, see, the Jacksonville Jaguars already had a good defense. They weren't as great last year as they were the year prior to that, but they still have studs on that defense. They made their defensive line just a little bit younger. They had Calais Campbell, who was obviously, on the wrong side of 30. So I thought Josh Allen was a great pick, and that, just adds to that good defensive unit. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's good to improve your strengths, and that's what they did. So that team's going to be really, really dangerous with Josh Allen there. And then they improved their offensive line by getting one of the best offensive linemen in this draft class, Jawan Taylor. And the reason why I just loved what the Jacksonville Jaguars did is because not only did they get one of the best pass rushers in this draft class, they got one of the best offensive linemen in this draft class. That's how you have to approach this draft. In the NFL draft, you have to grab the best player at that position. You have to get a top 5 individual at that respective position. People were ripping their hair off. Why didn't the Raiders get Josh Allen? Why didn't the Giants get Josh Allen? The Jaguars got Josh Allen. I could even make the case that maybe the Raiders waited on a pass rusher, not Josh Allen, and then get Jawan Taylor if they wanted to. Well, actually, that would have been a little too high for round 4, so actually, you know what? Scratch that. But the Jaguars got not only the best pass rusher, but the best offensive line in this draft. I mean, that's how you execute a draft, man. The Jaguars killed it with their first 2 picks. And then in the 3rd round, they get Josh Oliver, tight end. The Jaguars need more receiving options. Nick Foles is their quarterback. Nick Foles is going to need a safety blanket. Josh Oliver will immediately come in and be that for Nick Foles. So good strategy by the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was very, very satisfied with what they were doing. I consider them one of the biggest winners in the NFL draft, alongside the Buffalo Bills. Same thing, Buffalo Bills followed the same type of strategy the Jacksonville Jaguars did. They drafted Ed Oliver, one of the best defensive linemen in this draft. And then they also drafted in the 2nd round Cody Taylor, one of the best offensive linemen in this draft. And then in the 3rd round, they got Devin Singletary. See, the Bills need a running back. Because LaShawn McCoy, he's done. His career, to me, it's done. I've stayed away from LaShawn McCoy for the last couple of years in fantasy football. Because I was always so weary of him. But to me, he's officially done. His career is over to me. So they drafted a running back in the 3rd round, which, if they can find a running back talent in the 3rd round, Raiders, you could have done that too. With your 2nd pick in the 1st round, you could have drafted an offensive lineman instead of Josh Jacobs. But that's pretty smart. They got one of the best players from a defensive line standpoint in the draft class, one of the best offensive line in this year's draft. And then they said, you know what, look, we got a good guard. Now why don't we get a running back? Now let's improve this offense. Honestly, I don't even remember who the Buffalo Bills were relying on at running back. It could have been Chris Ivory. I may be wrong. But Chris Ivory is not a lead back. Again, I could be wrong, but that's not the guy you want to be giving, 15 carries. So that was really, really good strategy. Great execution by both the Buffalo Bills and the Jacksonville Jaguars in this year's draft. They nailed it. Definitely are going to improve that their teams. Definitely will improve their team. On the defensive side, the Buffalo Bills did also get a little younger. They had some aging defensive players. I think Kyle Williams also retired too, who was, one of their best pass rushers for the last, ever since he's been on the Bills. So I really, really like that. And then, Josh Allen needs some protection. So they got Cody Taylor. And then to take pressure off of Josh Allen in the pass game, they got a running back. That's how you address your draft needs. I'm not sure what the Raiders were exactly doing. So kudos to the Jaguars and kudos to the Bills. I actually think they're 1-2 as the winners for the NFL draft. And it was just an overall really great weekend in sports. We had the NFL draft and then also the second round of the NBA playoffs started. And so I want to kind of get into, kind of recap some of my first round NBA predictions and then give you guys my predictions for the second round of the NBA playoffs and ultimately just, kind of give you my predictions of who I think are going to make it to the Eastern Conference and Western Conference Finals. So in the first round, I had the Golden State Warriors over the LA Clippers. I was right on that. I think a lot of people, I think everyone, in the sports universe had the Golden State over the LA Clippers, but I don't think everyone thought it was going to be a close and a competitive series as it was. That definitely shocked me. So a big shout out to the LA Clippers and Doc Rivers for really coaching up that team the way he did during that series. I also had the Spurs over the Nuggets. I was wrong on that. I thought this Denver Nuggets team was a little too young to compete with, just sort of that veteran coaching staff and just knowing how the Spurs are so well coached. And, they have DeMar DeRozan, they have LaMarcus Aldridge. They've been there and done that. They haven't necessarily won championships, but they've been in the playoffs. They know what the pressure is like. And so I didn't think too much of the Spurs being a 7th seed and the Nuggets being a 2nd seed. I really just thought at the end of the day it was just going to come down to great coaching. But, this Denver Nuggets team is a pretty deep team, has some really good young talent, and that definitely surprised me. The series was close, and I did think it was going to be close because, at the end of the day, the Nuggets aren't a fluke. They did have a great season for a reason. I was also wrong on the OKC Blazers series. I had OKC winning and beating the Portland Trail Blazers. But Russell Westbrook once again fails all of us basketball fans by proving, he's sort of a one-man show. He made the series about him versus Damian Lillard rather versus, making the series about the OKC Thunder versus the Portland Trail Blazers. And you kind of saw that, right? When Russell Westbrook would make a shot over Damian Lillard, he would celebrate and pound his chest. Damian Lillard wasn't doing too much of that. I mean, look, they were both trash-talking, of course, but I just felt like there was just more of a business handling from Damian Lillard than there was from Russell Westbrook. And also that backcourt of the Blazers is just hard to keep up with sometimes. Because Damian Lillard is more of a willing passer despite the stats of Russell Westbrook leading the league in assists, averaging a triple-double, for 3 straight seasons. I feel like, in a way, Russell Westbrook is still more of a selfish ball player. He's such a ball-dominant basketball player, and I think that Damian Lillard is a little more willing to pass around the ball, let CJ McCollum get his fair share of the shots. Them two have a pretty good relationship where whoever's hot, they're going to let that guy sort of take over the game. Where I feel like Russell Westbrook still struggles with that. At times this season, he's let Paul George done that, but he still struggles with that. And we've seen that before with Durant, and it was evident in this playoff series as well. Rockets versus Jazz. I had the Rockets going over the Jazz. I think a lot of teams did as well. I was surprised the series wasn't as close as it should have been. I think the series ended in 5 games. I thought it was going to be maybe a 6-7 game series. Donovan Mitchell kind of struggled throughout the series. He had probably about 1 good game. I thought he was going to have a couple of good games that would have brought them over the hump for a couple of those games throughout the series, but that wasn't the case. This Rocket team was rolling and ready to, was firing on all cylinders right out the gate. I had the Bucks over the Pistons. That was a clean sweep. I didn't think the Pistons were going to win a game over the Bucks because, and this is before I even knew that Blake Griffin got injured. So, given that Blake Griffin was injured for most of the series, I mean, that was just a clear-cut case. I don't think anyone expected the Pistons to win a game until that last game where Blake Griffin ended up playing pretty much on one leg. But that series went like that. This Milwaukee Bucks team is a very dangerous team. Giannis is he's pretty much unstoppable right now because he's so explosive and strong. It's a little hard to prevent him to go into the basket. And he's just so effective. And I think once he can get a consistent jump shot, and I don't think he needs a three-pointer, if he can get that mid-range jump shot, I think he's going to be one of the most, biggest threats in this league. One of the most hardest players to guard in this league. Then that team's pretty deep too. They have Eric Bledsoe, they have Chris Middleton, they have guys that can create their own shot as well. So that's a really really good team, and not surprised there that they beat the Pistons. I had the Raptors over the Magic. Look, the Magic just don't have enough star power. They don't have enough players that can score the ball and keep up with guys like Kawhi Leonard, and Kyle Lowry. And I think everyone else had the Raptors beating the Magic. 76ers beat the Nets. There were a couple of games where the 76ers had trouble, but they pulled through. And again, the 76ers are a pretty deep team. Besides that big three of Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, and Jimmy Butler, they have Tobias Harris, they have J.J. Redick, they have a couple of other guys on that team that can, score buckets and, play the right role. And that team is pretty deep as well. And Celtics over Pacers. I mean, look, without Victor Oladipo, I didn't think they were going to win a game. So I'm not surprised there that the Celtics handled their business, got out of that series in a 4-0 sweep. So the second round of the NBA playoffs, Golden State versus the Rockets. I have Golden State beating the Rockets in a 6-game series. The Golden State Warriors, as everyone knows, is a more balanced team, well-rounded team, knows how to share the ball, have a great offensive system, and play great defense. The Rockets play pretty good defense, but their offensive system is very, very bad. It's a very ball-dominant offense with James Harden at the top of the key. A lot of players don't move around, and even when Chris Paul is handling the ball, he's almost similar to James Harden. He's going to dribble, and then when there's about 5 seconds left, he's either going to try to find someone open for someone else to shoot the ball, or he's going to take a bad shot. And I think that's just a recipe for disaster, and it's not a recipe to win championships. I think the Golden State Warriors will win this series in 6 games. Blazers versus Nuggets. I think the Blazers are just rolling right now. They're a little less exhausted than the Nuggets are, and so I predict that the Blazers will beat the Nuggets in a 7-game series. And the reason why I'm saying it's going to be a 7-game series is because I think there's going to be a lot of transfer of wins by each team when each team plays their home games. But this Blazers team is tough. I don't think the Nuggets have enough talent on their team to keep up with the Portland Blazers backcourt. And, although Jokic is one of the greatest centers in the game, the Portland Trailblazers have Enes Kanter. And Kanter's one of those guys who's not afraid to get dirty and not afraid to throw his body around. And I think he may be able to disrupt Jokic just a little bit. I'm not saying Kanter is this great defensive player, but he can disrupt him and cause some noise down there. So I think that's going to be a great series to watch. That's probably going to be one of my favorite series to watch. Because it's a low-key series. I don't think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to it because a lot of people are going to be paying more attention to the Golden State Warriors and the Rocket series. I have Celtics over Bucks. I think overall the Celtics are just a great team and a very, very deep team. Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Each of those guys can score 20 points. And each of those guys, maybe with the exception of Jaylen Brown, on any given night can take over basketball games. You can rely on either one of those three, Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, or Jason Tatum, to take over basketball games. I don't feel like the Bucks have enough players to do that. I think it's Giannis, and everyone else plays a role on that team, like Chris Middleton and Eric Bledsoe. And look, I'm a Phoenix Suns fan. I followed Eric Bledsoe a lot during his career with the Phoenix Suns. Eric Bledsoe's basketball IQ isn't the greatest. He takes some pretty bad shots. He plays very, very, erratically. It's sometimes very hard basketball to watch when Eric Bledsoe's at the realm of that offense and handling the ball at the top of the key. His jump shot's very, very inconsistent. And so I think that's going to be very, very hard when you have a point guard like that who can't match Kyrie pound for pound. And last but not least, the Raptors and 76ers. I have the Raptors beating the 76ers in 6 games. I do want to say 5 games, but the 76ers have a pretty good starting lineup that I think is going to help them win a couple of games in this series. The 76ers aren't that deep of a team. It's only their starting lineup that's capable of performing really, really well. They have Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, J.J. Redick. But I look at the Toronto Raptors team, and there are a couple of people that they can rely on to come off the bench and score points. And also, perform those role player roles. And look, the Toronto Raptors lineup is probably just as good as the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, we saw the Toronto Raptors the other day just beat the 76ers. Kawhi Leonard, what did he do? Drop 50 points? Kawhi Leonard is better than Jimmy Butler. Kawhi Leonard is an exceptional offensive player. He doesn't get a lot of credit for it because he's not as flashy as a lot of the other players are, but he's very, very patient. I haven't seen a patient scorer like Kawhi Leonard. You usually don't find people like that in today's game. He's very patient, very methodical, very, very smart with the basketball, and it's really, really fun to watch him play ball. You know, he's one of those players that gets you a quiet 50-point game. That's how great he is to watch. That's how great it is and fun it is to watch someone like him go to work. It's very, very scientific the way he just handles the ball and picks his spots on the court. Jimmy Butler doesn't do that the way Kawhi Leonard does. Butler is a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's nowhere near the offensive player Kawhi Leonard is, and he's nowhere near the defensive player Kawhi Leonard is. Kawhi Leonard is going to give Jimmy Butler problems in this series, but Jimmy Butler will not give Kawhi Leonard problems in this series, and that's going to be the ultimate difference. And I know then we can also look at Joel Embiid, but the Raptors have bodies to throw at Joel Embiid. It's not about stopping Joel Embiid from getting a double-double every game, from getting 20 points and 10 rebounds or 20 and 15. It's about making Joel Embiid work for those stats. That's what you have to do. And they got bodies to throw at him. They have Serge Ibaka. You know, they have Marc Gasol. Those are the two guys that have been known as good big men defensive players. The Raptors are a pretty good built team to take out the 76ers. I wouldn't be surprised if they win this series in 5 games, but I'm going to say that the Raptors take this series in 6 games. And that, folks, just about wraps it up. This is episode 5 of the Unsportsmanlike Conduct. From yours truly, your typical armchair quarterback. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Please, while you're listening to this, please subscribe to my YouTube page. Please follow my Instagram page. It's _unsportsmanlike_conduct. Again, thanks for all the support. Until next time, peace out.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.